Let's start with Manchester City and the breaking news this evening. Antoine Semeno will have a medical on Thursday. Now, City have a number of injury concerns, but Pep Guardiola insists that doesn't mean they'll go big in the market this month. Ruben Diaz is expected to be out for up to 6 weeks. And yesterday, the news broke that Josko Gvardiol will have surgery after fracturing his leg. Well, here's Pep and Bournemouth's head coach, Andoni Iraola.
Maybe we get something, but it's completely different. We are not going to buy 4 or 5 players that happened last season to be the best transfer spend net in this country. Like we are not, but apparently always we are. So yeah, with 6-7 injuries, we have to be 35 players in the squad. It cannot be sustainable for the team, economy, financially, and for the vibe. Always you spend more. There's some decisions that has been made, some decisions the club needs to sell, because always you have to make, financially our numbers. But I'm really pleased with the squad we had in the pre-season, in the season, and right now. So it's what it is. During the years happen sometimes, and wish him, Josko and Ruben come back soon, and John as well, and the players for Africa come back, and survive that moment, that period, and go for the next one.
To confirm, Antoine Semeno in the squad and will play.
Yes, Antoine will play tomorrow, yes.
A lot of people are wondering whether this is his last Bournemouth game. What can you say?
I can give you my opinion from my experience, but there is nothing signed with Antoine Semeno. If you ask me personally, what do you think? With all the noise and this, I think could be the last game, but I cannot guarantee it.
Right, Marc, I need you to explain something to me here. Why are Manchester City and Bournemouth allowing Semeno to play the day before his medical at City?
Well, there's potentially 2 reasons. First and foremost, he has a contract and a release clause, which we know expires on January the 10th. Now, I'm surmising in that contract, does it say he has to play X number of games in January before he can be officially released? That could be one of the reasons. I don't know that, but I'm surmising that may be something to do with it, because Andoni has said throughout the course of the last 2-3 weeks, when there's been a lot of speculation about Antoine, he will be our player and he will play at the weekend, and he plays at the weekend. And then he says the same thing in the press conference the week after, and he plays again the week after. And he said last week...
But it's a potential nightmare, that, isn't it? For everybody concerned.
I also think it shows a lot about Antoine Semeno, the respect he has for AFC Bournemouth, the respect he has for the fans, for the people that have enabled him to get to the position where he's now got the choice of clubs, and he's decided to go to a side that are serial winners. And I also think it is a huge risk. But obviously Manchester City are comfortable, Bournemouth are comfortable, and most importantly Antoine Semeno, which goes against the grain of the narrative of so many stories in the summer. I'm not playing, I'm not training, I'm not going to do this until I get what I want. Antoine Semeno, very much like Marc Guehi, has been the model professional, and he's continued to play and give everything for Bournemouth. He scored 3 in his last 5. He's got 9 goals in the Premier League this season with 3 assists. He's been absolutely sensational. He's had really strong moments, but I think this is the clear indication that actually Pep Guardiola and Manchester City are getting the perfect professional, both on and off the pitch. And it has been done before with Bournemouth. They had Dean Howson, who went to Real Madrid. They only allowed Dean Howson to sign that contract, and a part of that contract with Real Madrid was that he could play in those last few matches of the Premier League season for Bournemouth. And regardless of what happened with injury, he would still be going to Real Madrid. They would still honour that contract. Now, this hasn't been signed as far as we're aware. However, we do know, like you said at the top of the show, that Antoine Semeno has been booked in for a Manchester City medical on Thursday. So you'd imagine it's all but agreed, if not completely signed.
You use the phrase perfect professional. A lot of people, Carve, say that about Marc Guehi. Now, I see why a move...
I thought you were going to say about me.
No. I see why a move for works for him to go to City works for the club. Does it work for Marc Guehi?
I think we've seen this movie before, because we're in exactly the same position that we were in the summer with Marc Guehi. His contract is running out at Crystal Palace in the summer. There is a long list of clubs who are interested in signing him. Basically, every big club in Europe wants him as well. He can now talk to those big European clubs and sign a pre-contract agreement with them. But there's also interest from English clubs. Now,
so
we know...
why would he sign for Manchester City this month? Doesn't make sense to do it now when he's got the world as his oyster in the summer.
He may think Manchester City are one of the biggest clubs in the world. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work with Pep Guardiola. If I go to City, I will have everything that any footballer could ever want. Why would I want to go to a Barcelona or Real Madrid? I prefer playing in the Premier League. What we know is that he's a player who Man City admire, but I think their plan was to sign a centre-back in the summer. Now, because of the injury problems they've got at the moment, I'm pretty sure they'll hold discussions about whether they need to accelerate their plans to sign a centre-back and whether that target should be Marc Guehi. But always remember that it's up to Crystal Palace ultimately what happens to Marc Guehi until his contract runs out in the summer. And Oliver Glasner is somebody who's got a big say in this. In the summer, he was not willing to let Glasner go unless Crystal Palace signed a replacement. And I don't think that situation has changed. And I also think some of the other clubs who are trying to sign him in the summer will also be trying to sign him again this month.
Well, you mentioned Oliver Glasner. We spoke to him today. This is what he said.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what will happen. And I mentioned these injuries can happen. Never know. But what I know, Marc will play tomorrow. Well, I expected he trained. But I don't know what will happen.
Yeah, so Oliver Glasner unsure there, but it's also important to remember that there's another player in town in the Premier League, and that's Liverpool. He got so close to joining Liverpool in the summer. He was literally completed the medical. Everything was done and dusted, and at the last minute, at the 11th hour, Crystal Palace pulled the deal because Oliver Glasner couldn't get the replacement in he wanted. But Liverpool have always had an interest in Marc Guehi. They still have an interest in Marc Guehi. I think the biggest question will be the money that gets put on the table. If Manchester City or Liverpool decide, right, we cannot wait until the summer and be in a dogfight to try and get him to sign for us, therefore let's try and do the deal now, let's get it done early. What will that magical figure be that Crystal Palace say, that's the one we'll accept? It was 35 million in the summer. Is it 20 million now? Is it 25 million? Is it 15?
Listen, they didn't do it in the summer. Why would they do it now? It doesn't make sense to me. Why would they do it now, Palace?
You know why I think they didn't do it in the summer? They didn't do it in the summer because Liverpool left it too late. And I think Crystal Palace thought that Liverpool had other priorities. They were, signing a lot of forward players, and they only turned their attention to Marc Guehi pretty late on. And also, they didn't really increase the offer they had on the table. So I don't think there was that burning desire from Liverpool to do the deal quickly in the summer. That is why I think it didn't happen. I'm not sure whether the situation has changed this January, whether they'll be moving any quicker or offering any more. They won't be offering more than 35, of course, because potentially the price has dropped because he's only got less than 6 months left on his contract now.
I think the dynamic has changed at Crystal Palace as well. In the summer, Oliver Glasner was, an FA Cup winner, Community Shield winner, and there would have been a thought process at Crystal Palace. Look, let's try and keep this manager happy because we believe we can get him to sign a new contract. We're now 6 months into the season and he hasn't signed a new deal, and it looks increasingly likely that he is going to be, again, a free transfer in the summer. So Crystal Palace may say, now the decision is not about trying to keep the manager happy, it's about doing what's right for the football club. And if taking £20 million right now, when we lose the player in 4 months for free, suits us, then we have to try and do what's right for Crystal Palace as opposed to what's right for Oliver Glasner.
Yeah, that's a good point. So much going on at the moment.